Dear viewers and followers, my name is Kate Williams and this is In Conversation With, a part of Remembering Srebrenica UK's ongoing discussions on the matters of genocide as it relates to the Bosnian War and the ethnic cleansing campaign which occurred from 1992 until 1995. The Bosnian genocide was the worst atrocity on European soil since the Holocaust. A campaign of ethnic cleansing, war crimes and genocide took place against the majority Bosnian Muslim population. These crimes included the establishment of concentration camps, cultural genocide, and further crimes against humanity spread throughout Bosnia. Until in July 1995, genocide occurred in Srebrenica. I'm joined here today by Amra, Begic, a 41-year-old survivor of the Srebrenica genocide. Hello, Amra.
Hey, hello, Kate.
You were 17 years old when the war and genocide began, and a lot has been discussed of the time prior and the horrific and brutal ethno-nationalism that kind of spread across Bosnia and the former Yugoslavia. Can you tell us what it was like for you growing up in Bosnia and what it was like for you kind of before the war?
Yeah, I really have to say that I was not 17 when the war broke out. Actually,
Okay.
It was 1992, so I was 13 and a half.
13
So
and a half, okay.
3 years later, genocide was committed here at the territory of the Srebrenica municipality. So can you imagine, I was just a teenager. Former Yugoslavia was perfect place to live, I would say, because we had perfect lives, very normal lives, living in our own houses, going for the vacations, the holidays, and like all over the world, let's just say. So what was important for us, it was family life. So me and my family, of course, we were living together. I have 2 older sisters. And we were never thinking that something like war could happen in our own country, you know. So we used to listen about that maybe at some far places, let's to say, but it was never like it will happen. It will happen one day here in Yugoslavia or in Bosnia, you know. So the lesson that I learned then is that it can happen everywhere and to anyone. It is up to us to try to recognize the things that leads to the wars or conflicts, you know, and to try to prevent that, you know. So in the April 1992, my father decided to send me and my sisters to Tuzla, you know, which is just 100 kilometers far away from here. But my parents, they decided to stay in Srebrenica. And unfortunately on that day, on April 11th, 1992, I saw my father for the last time. We had a deal that we will see each other in about 15 days, you know, like let's just see the situation in the next days, and then we will come to Tuzla or you will come back to Srebrenica.
You were sent to Tuzla, correct?
Yeah.
Just before. What was it like at the refugee camp? What were the experiences like there?
First, we were living at my aunt's apartment, but there was decades of the cousins, also refugees. So we realized that we can't stay there, so we needed to find accommodation for us. So my sister, she was trying to find accommodation and a house for the students because she was student, and she went to apply for the room there. But actually that home, students home, was transformed to the refugee camp actually in Tuzla. So that, believe or not, even that I was living at the like 12 square meters room, without kitchen, without our own toilet, you know, I was happy there. Yeah, it was hard because we needed to clean the toilets where like 50 people used to go, like for the whole floor. We needed to deal with the problem that we didn't have electricity, we didn't have any heating, so we were freezing sometimes, but still, the why we were happy or why we were okay there, it was because people around us, they were all same like us.
Yeah.
But the problem was that when I started with my secondary school, I was the only child without parents. You know, I used to study secondary medical school, which is quite hard, you know. And actually, I remember that everybody wanted to go to that school because on the end we were all able to work with that degree, So it was miracle that someone from Srebrenica, refugee from the refugee camp, came to that school and finished that school, But uh, I remember that in that time I didn't talk. I knew I didn't feel comfortable, not at all, but I never wanted to show that, that I don't have a parents, that I'm living. That everybody knew, but I was pretending like it is not a problem for me. In one moment, I realized that it is not a problem for me because they were more serious problems, like what was happening in Srebrenica, So the issues or whatever that we were dealing with were more important, Like I needed to go to the woods to bring some the trees for the heating. I needed to go to wait for the humanitarian aid. I needed, you know, so we were worried about the situation in Srebrenica. We were running for the, looking for the any news from here. So in the end, it was not important how we feel. Yeah.
I'm going to move us on to talk about the fall of Srebrenica itself now. And you were separated from your family, but you were really united with some family members, but not your father. In the moment that you heard about the fall of Srebrenica, what was your initial reaction? Can you recall those feelings and those moments for us?
Yes, yes, it's still painful. Almost 25 years after. Yeah, it's the memories are like yesterday. Really, it's uh, the first that I remember is that actually for some time for 1 or 2 days it was not sure if Srebrenica falling or not. We were receiving different news from Srebrenica. Like they said, Srebrenica is falling, Srebrenica is not falling. That was also the hard period from us, for all of us, because we didn't know what was happening, So the only news that we could hear, it was coming from the Serbian Republic TV stations, TV and radio stations, So it was really hard to believe. And it was even more hard than when we finally realized that Srebrenica is falling. Really, it's uh, uh, when we realized that Srebrenica is falling. Actually, after we heard the report by the Bosnian radio amateur from Srebrenica, Nino Čatić, he is not alive. He didn't survive genocide, but he was warning the world that it is going to be the greatest massacre at the soil of Europe, after the Second World War, or something like that. I can't now sentence him in a way that he said that. But anyway, it was clear to all of us that Srebrenica is falling. And the first reaction was that we were thinking, okay, nearby the refugee camp where I was when I heard that Srebrenica fall, there was actually nearby Tuzla. There was an Eagle base. American soldiers were there, as I remember. So it is on the airport nearby Tuzla. So we were trying to organize ourselves, all of us, that we had some family members in Srebrenica. The idea was stupid, probably, but when you are thinking, is there anything that I can do? I will, if there is anything, then I will do. So we found a man that he had a truck to drive us up there, but then some grenades fall nearby the place where we were. So it was like they knew that we are organizing something. So when we were back to the building, the bombing stopped. But then when we tried to go to the track again, the bombing started again. So they never sent grenades very close to us, but we could hear it. You know, it's really like, okay, this is just a warning or whatever. So that night we couldn't go to the base up there, but the idea was to go to try to surround them, to force them to do something for Srebrenica or whatever. It's really it was stupid. Pardon. So I went back to the apartment where I was living with my cousins. So 3 months before falling of Srebrenica, my sister, that she was until then with me, she moved to Germany. So I needed to move into the apartment of my cousin. He was almost never there, and the problem. And I went back there. I wanted him to give me some information, but I just remember that he was not talking a lot. Probably he knew more than me. But then next morning, yeah, I forgot. I asked some of my friends that they went to Kladan if they see any of my family members or relatives to let me know. So I gave them phone number. I just remember that I was writing phone number where they can reach me. And one of my friends next morning, early in the morning, he told me it was July 12th. No, July. No, it was evening of July 12th. He told me that he saw my sister and my mother somewhere in the tunnel in Kladan, which was the war line in between the territory under the control of the Bosnian Serbs army and Bosnian army. So I just remember that I was pretending that I didn't hear him when he said that he didn't see my father with them. Clearly I heard him. But I said, no, probably I can't hear you, and probably you didn't see my sister and my mom. Because for me, it was not, I couldn't imagine that the three of them are not together, you know. So I said, no, it's not. Then we spent a night, then actually I went with someone's car to the airport nearby Tuzla. It was actually like shelter for the refugees who were coming from Srebrenica by buses. And I remember that I was standing in the front of the bus and waiting to see some of my family members. And I was jealous to the people around me when they see someone, you know, and when they start to hug each other. I was jealous because there was still no my family there. So at the evening, I went to the one building. It doesn't matter. That one, yeah, it's. But anyway, there was a phone, and I wanted to phone my cousin to ask him if there are some news about. And then my sister, she answered the phone. Yeah, that was one of the most happiest moments. She said, "Mom and me, we are together here." And then I said, "And him?" You know, I couldn't say father or something like that. She said, he didn't come with us. You know, she didn't say anything else. You know, she wanted me to sit with her and talk. So when I went back there, they were already, as I said, in my cousin's house. And my sister and mom, they still were not talking about what happened with my father. She was like occupying me, like we have to go back there to the airport because I really need to know if my friends coming, you know, to check who is there, who is not, you know. So I remember that we bought a lot of sweets and we went back there. And still, I was afraid to ask again. And she was afraid to tell me. But anyway, day after she told me, like, they were the last in the bus to go into the bus. It was my mom first, then my sister. It was late it was late at July 12th, and then the Bosnian Serb soldier that I see him on the street every day, believe or not, in Srebrenica today. He came to my father and he said, "Mr. Where are you going now?" So my father gave his bag to my sister, and he said, "Everything is over now." So he knew that he's not going to survive. And unfortunately, he was right. That was the day when someone saw him for the last time until he was still alive. Yeah. Yeah. We for the years I pleased my sister to tell me exactly where the bus was standing. But she said, "No, you are working there in the memorial center. You would think about that too often, actually, every time when you see the place. So it doesn't matter. There was a bus, and that bus was just one in the line."
Yeah. How long did it take your family to find what had happened to your father and identify him?
It took more than 13 years. So longer than 13 years, actually, in November 2008. We didn't receive the phone call, I have to say, because, yeah, I had a dream night before. I was sitting in the middle of the mass grave and collecting the remains of my father, like I knew what belonged to him, what not. And on the end of my dream, there was still missing part. So next morning, I said to the director of the memorial center about this dream, and he told me, like, let's call the identification office in Tuzla, the ICMP, International Commission on Identification office in Tuzla. And when I called them, I was told, like, we just wanted to call you. So I knew immediately that we found my father. So the only that I asked it was if there is his skeleton total or there are still missing parts. They said uh, 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 they said it is whole skeleton or very small part is still missing. So
Yeah.
I said, no, there's something still missing, and then I was numb. Really, it was shock because even that we were waiting for that moment for the years. It's really also something else that makes us different than others, when you hope that you will find the skeleton, at least remains of your family member. It's not normal.
Yeah.
So I was waiting for the longer than 13 years. I visited many mass graves, locations of the mass graves, where I was trying to find something, and then I was not ready. Really, it didn't make me stronger or whatever. I was not ready for that. So then the procedure is that we needed to go to the ICMP center in Tuzla to sign in the documentation to confirm that it is it is my father, actually, and husband of my mom, and my sister was there also. We were told that they found some of his clothing, and they found the hand watch and the glasses for the reading. So reading glasses. So for his jacket and pants and other things, they said that they suggest us to not take it. And we took the hand watch and reading glasses and in that moment, I had just had one Red Cross message from my father, one piece of paper. And so in that moment, those three things were only that we had, and that it belonged to my father, you know. So, but when we came home, I was checking on the hand watch, and the first shock was that it was full of the blood, maybe his blood, maybe someone's blood, but however. And the second was like, this is not the hand watch of my father, because um, uh, behind it was written like, for the 20 years working for this company, and he never worked for that company, you know. So I said to my mom, yeah, this is not my father's watch. She said, and I read it for her. So she said, she started to cry, and she said, yes, it is not your father's hand watch, but it is my father's hand watch, because she got it from her father, and she gave that to my father. And my grandpa was also killed during the Srebrenica genocide, my mother's father, and she didn't have anything that belonged to him, you know. So we found personal belongings of my father and her father with my father, and we have something from both of them. Yeah, it was really like, and then of course, like everybody else, we decided to bury him here at the memorial center at the cemetery site. So we buried him on 2009, and then my grandpa in 2011. Unfortunately, my grandpa was 78 years old, and after he was killed, like all the others, they brought him to the locations of to the primary locations of the mass graves. Then, when they realized that we are looking for them, the Bosnian Serbs military forces, then they replaced them from the primary to the secondary, and sometimes even once more after. You know, they were not thinking about the parts of the skeletons. They were digging without by shovels, you know, without thinking about anything. So sometimes they were taking them from the one primary mass grave to the several secondary mass graves. So we found my actually 55% of my grandpa was buried in July 2011. Uh, those 55% we found in a 4 different mass graves from the 6 different pieces, and there was no personal belongings, of course. So that's why we were happy that we got this that from my father. Yeah. So it's really hard. It's long. It's too long. It took years from us, you know. So it changed all of us, you know. Even if we survived war, it would still be different if we didn't have a genocide to carry on, you know, to deal with that, to what. Yeah.
I think the story of you hearing, you know, it taking so long to find the remains of your loved ones, and also obviously your grandfather's remains, only finding partial remains, and then searching for years in order to do so. I think that's something that's reflected with many Bosnian families who are still searching for their loved ones, and are still trying to kind of seek justice for what happened to them. I know that even today there are mass graves still being discovered in Bosnia. You have returned to Srebrenica, and you now work at the Memorial Centre. What was it that made you return, despite the fact that you knew that horrific atrocities had occurred in Srebrenica?
Yeah, I had few reasons. Let's say that one of the reasons, yeah, my mom was one of the reasons, but from the other side, I wanted to say, here I am, really, really, and I'm still like that. Here I am, and here are my kids now. But the problem is that, yeah, few days ago, you mentioned that many families, Bosniak families from Srebrenica lost someone. Few days ago, we went to the one hill from where you can see Srebrenica, you know, the town of very center of Srebrenica. And then my kids started to ask me, do you know who used to live in that house? I answered, and the question was where he is now, or where, what, yeah, you know, I said, it's one of the genocide victims. And then the next question was the same. The question was the same, and accidentally or not, the answer was the same also. So they just asked me 3 times the same question for the different house, and from all 3 houses, someone was killed during the genocide, you know. And then my daughter said, I'm giving up. There is no house where nobody, where everyone, from where everyone survived, you know. And I said, unfortunately, it is like that. I don't know any family from Srebrenica that they didn't lose someone, really. And still, in that time, I'm so lucky on the end. I lost a father and grandpa and 26 cousins, and my best friend was killed. Yeah, Alan was my best friend. He was 17 and a half. So, but I was still lucky because I was not a mother in that time. I know the mothers that they lost 5 sons, that some of them kids were killed during the war in Srebrenica, which is also the question to the things to discuss. You know, sometimes when we are talking about Srebrenica, we are talking just about those 7 days in July, about the genocide. But we really have to start, or we really have to go like 3 years, at least 3 years back, you know, to the 1992 and 1993, and it was like, how to say that, ouverture, is that the word in English? Like preparing for the genocide. It's really the things that took us to the genocide on the end. You know, the genocide in this week in July, it was just the end of everything, you know. So we are forgetting, in one moment, I just realized that we forgot that half of my neighbors were killed in April and May 1992. We forgot that more than 2,000 people died by the bombings, shellings, and grenades and snipers just in between February and March 1993 here in Srebrenica, you know. So we had a huge problem with the cemetery here in Srebrenica. So we didn't have where to bury all of the victims in that time. So yeah, when I decided to Srebrenica, it's like, to come back to Srebrenica, it was like, here I am, but also I wanted to be with my mom, because in one moment I realized that I have address in Sarajevo, and that's it, you know, because I was driving from Sarajevo to Stockholm, and where one of my sisters living now, and Tuzla and Srebrenica, you know, I was mostly guests somewhere. So I decided to come back to Srebrenica, and I'm happy because of that. Yeah, 1.5 years after, I was offered to start to work in the Memorial Center in 2005. So we were still foundation, and I'm so happy that in 3 days it will be 15 years since I'm here.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
So it's been, this year is 25 years since the genocide, and in Srebrenica, and throughout Bosnia, but particularly in one area of Bosnia and Republika Srpska, a culture of genocide denial has kind of continued to be preserved in schools and in the government and political levels, and kind of in social and personal levels too. How do you, as a survivor, deal with genocide denial? And perhaps one of the things that you could explain for our audience is, what does genocide denial look like on that level? Because our audience may think, well, how can people deny something that is historical fact? So kind of two-pronged here. What does it look like, and how does it affect you as a survivor on that personal level?
Yeah, it depends very much from whom it is coming, you know, it's really like that. But Yeah, I would be a liar if I say that I'm okay with that. Maybe we get used on it, I would say, because that was something that we were expecting, believe or not. But anyway, the problem is that in Srebrenica now we have major that he is then denying genocide, and it is not something that I just think. Yeah, uh, many people from England will watch this probably, or I hope so. You can always Google BBC and the name of the major of Srebrenica when he said. I think that he said something like. I don't even deny genocide, because if you to be able to deny that something had to deny something, that something needs to happen. So it's really like the problem is that we have a local government here at the place where genocide was committed. To deny genocide. The problem is that our kids can hear it. So. They soon they will ask the questions, mm, and it's really hard to explain to the kids that our neighbors, maybe them friends, don't believe that we had a fathers and grandpaps, and that the genocide is reason why they don't have a grandpa, my kids, for example. So it's really hard, but it is something that we get used to deal. But also we hope that that the last year, just before the funeral, but just before the commemoration day, High Representative for Bosnia and Herzegovina, Mr. Valentin Insko, gave a promise or something like that, that they will make a law against the genocide denial. So last year they were explaining why next year, like we would like to give a chance for the Parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina to bring that, but we knew that it will never happen, because we have that national key in the Parliament, and that something like that will never pass. So this year we hope that the High Representative will keep the promise, and because of the new generations that will come, or that they are already here. Because if they are allowed to make war criminals as a heroes, to celebrate them as a heroes, if they are allowed to deny genocide, then they will maybe, or somewhere across the world, maybe someone will think, okay, we can do it again. That what happened in New Zealand, for all of us was shock when the mosque was attacked. The killer was listening the song about the Radovan Karadzic, war criminal from actually former president of Republika Srpska. So it is about ideology also. So it's really important to stop it on the end. So we just hope that it will happen one day.
You spoke about talking to your children about what happened in Srebrenica, house by house, telling them what happened to the people who lived there. But also, I know that through your work at Potocari, that young people and school groups do come. When young people come to Potocari, what is their reaction to hearing from you and seeing the memorial complex? And how is that instrumental really for combating genocide denial?
Yeah, actually, it depends very much of how well prepared the group is. We have, for example, students that they studied a lot, that they were watching the documentaries, reading the books, and they are ready for the most of that we'll see in the memorial center. But there was no person who was 100% sure that they are that was 100% ready for the place like this, let's just say. But also, from the other side, the visitors are sometimes surprised that us as a family members of the genocide victims or genocide survivors, that we are working actually here. So it's but what we are trying is to not bring our personal stories, not always for the visitors, but sometimes, when you have a question, or when you really would like people to understand what was happening in here. When you start to talk about your personal loss, then the feeling is, okay, now they are listening to me. You know, it's really like that. So this is a very special place, but the reactions on the end, it doesn't matter how ready they are, or if they are not prepared for this place. On the end, the reactions the same. Quite often it is like we would like to have a 15 minutes for ourselves, you know, just to think about what we saw, what we heard, and then you know, sometimes they have a lot of questions, sometimes not. But on the end, the message is that Srebrenica should never happen, or at least we don't have to let this happen nowhere and to anyone again, which is the motto of the Memorial Center in one way, you know. This message is written at the two parts of the cemetery site here in the Memorial Center, that we pray God to not let this happen nowhere and to anyone again. And that is what we really hope for.
Why do you think it's important for people to commemorate the Bosnian genocide?
It depends. For us, it is important, you know, because it is our own story, let's to say. It is something that happened to us. But also, if you are coming to Srebrenica, if you hear that the genocide happened, the genocide was committed. Actually, personally, I don't like that where it happened, because it didn't happen overnight. You know, the genocide was committed here. I hope that they will learn something, you know, because, for example, we have a lot of students here. Maybe some of them will be politicians one day. Maybe some of them will be in a situation to make decision, you know, or similar decision. So we hope that they will think about this place before they make a promise, at least, you know. So, but also it is important, yeah, to commemorate this. The genocide in Srebrenica is also a kind of prevention of the new future genocide somewhere in the world. You know, it's really, I hope that this was a big lesson to the world, you know, that they're supposed to not let this happen nowhere and to anyone again.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you feel about people who are not from Srebrenica contributing towards memorialization of the Srebrenica genocide, or joining in, taking part in these commemorations?
Yeah, you know, it's sometimes I don't understand, you know, because it's amazing actually that people that they are not related with Srebrenica, not related with Bosnia quite often, that they decided to commemorate genocide in Srebrenica and to commemorate the victims of the genocide, you know. So it's amazing, and it's unbelievable. It's important. It's important for all of us, and that's the way to spread the story, you know, because there are many people that they never heard about Srebrenica, and they never heard about Srebrenica genocide, you know, and that's the way to teach them. And we hope that the reflection will be the same, like when people coming to visit here, because people will start to think that something like that could happen on the end of the 20th century in a perfect modern Europe, you know. Then we have to be aware that it can happen everywhere and to anyone. So that's why it is important to learn about Srebrenica, you know, to try to prevent those horrible things to happen again. And that's why it is important to have that activities all over the world, you know. And that's why people who are commemorating the Srebrenica genocide are very important to all of us. And I have to say we are grateful to remembering Srebrenica. It is not now, it is for the years. It is now like tradition, you know, and every year it is getting more and more serious, you know, how you are commemorate Srebrenica genocide. And uh, it, because of you, I believe that there is not a lot of people in UK that they don't know about Srebrenica. So thank you for that.
I can't take all of the credit for that one, I'm afraid, but thank you very much. Can you describe to me what a modern day Srebrenica looks like? So we've talked about what it was like before the war. We've looked at the time of the genocide itself and what happened. But now, obviously, there is a memorial there. There is the town that has changed. What is Srebrenica like today, and what is the Srebrenica of your children's kind of experience like?
You can't never know in Srebrenica about the day that will happen tomorrow, for example. Actually, I have to say that Srebrenica before the war was one of the most beautiful places to live, really. Just when you translate the name of the town, it's like a silver town. So we had, just at the very center, we had more than 6,000 people who were living. Altogether at the territory of the municipality, we had more than 36,000. So today, at the whole territory of the municipality of Srebrenica, I believe that we don't have more than maybe 4,000. So the town of Srebrenica, less than we had at the very center before the war. So the town of Srebrenica is empty now. That's one of the problems, you know. And more people are thinking to go abroad. Unfortunately, you know, but living in Srebrenica, as I said before, in a nowadays, in today, let's to say, it's not easy. We have this genocide denial. Quite often it happens that they are putting the not billboards, but posters of Ratko Mladic. They are celebrating him as a hero. We hear the mayor of Srebrenica denying genocide. And unfortunately, yeah, and it's, you know, okay, adults, but this winter, something horrible happened in the school, you know. So the kids in the school, they made a photo where they wrote on the photo like young Chetniks or something like that. And some of them, they are from the same class, like my daughter. So we were shocked about it. And the non-Serb parents, we decided actually to protest. So for 1 hour, we didn't send kids to the school. We were thinking that we can change something, but actually we didn't change anything. Nobody didn't care that more than 70% of the kids was not in the school. Bosniaks, the kids of the returnees, are 70% at the primary school. It's huge percent, you know, but nobody didn't care that they are not there that first hour in the morning, you know. And for me, it was also, you know, I was in the same moment proud that we are standing there, but also I was so sorry for my kids. You know, they saw Serbian kids going to the school and they were standing in the front of, you know, fighting for them own rights, you know. And the problem is, for example, that the kids in Srebrenica, my son, he's just finished third grade. He needs to learn. He's learning Serbian language, not Bosnian. You know, really, he's not allowed to learn Bosnian language. And my daughter, she's not allowed to name her language as a Bosnian language. They call it as a language of the Bosniaks, you know. So before it was easier because they were younger and they didn't ask a lot of questions, you know. The hardest question actually came to me from my daughter. She was 5.5 when she asked me why I don't have a grandpa, you know. It was really shock. I thought I had to explain genocide in a nice way, you know, and she was too young to hear the story, you know, about what happened in here. And I was really like, I told her, when you are older, I will let you know, I will tell you, you know. So it's really hard. It was or the moment in the kindergarten when one Serbian boy asked me if my son Karim, if he, why he does he has a grandpa? I said no, and I was 2 minutes in the car. Later, I was in the car and I started to cry. You know, my tears were just like, and his grandpa came to pick him up. I had that picture that it would be the same if my father survived, you know. So in Srebrenica today, you can't never know when they will celebrate war criminals, when they will deny the genocide, or when the past will come back to your mind, you know, the moment, like when your own child asks you why I don't have a grandpa, you know. So it is Srebrenica today, unfortunately. Yeah.
Um, Obviously, Srebrenica is a town where tragedy struck and atrocities were committed, but it's also important for us to remember that it's a place where people live their lives. I believe you have a positive story to share with us about Srebrenica.
Yeah. Yes, Srebrenica is a place where genocide happened, but also Srebrenica is a place where it happened that BHB, Bauern Helfen Bauern, Austrian organization, decided to work on several different projects. But the main project in this moment that they are running in Srebrenica is the music school. Actually, the name of the school is House of the Good Tones, you know. So they have more than 350 kids from this region, actually from Srebrenica, Bratunac, Konjević Polje, and Skalani. They are bringing kids there, and the doors are open on the daily basis, you know, and that's the place where kids are not just able to learn uh, how to play the music, different instruments. They have a band already, you know. It is the place where the kids, they have opportunity to spend time together. I have to say that I'm so happy because of that, because I don't want my kids to stuck in a time, because I feel like it happened to me, you know. So I would really like them to have the friends without names, without where they belongs, you know. So that's the music school. What they are, the concept of the school is playing music, making music. For example, 6 years ago we had the floods in Bosnia, you know, and in Serbia and Croatia. What they did, they made a song together. They wrote the song, they made the music, and they were traveling, for example, to Switzerland and Austria, and you know, and they were collecting money for the reconstructions of the music schools in Bosnia, Serbia, and Croatia. You know, so also they are making the summer music camps. You know, they travel. They travel. They already traveled to Croatia, and they were preparing themselves for Serbia, but unfortunately because of the coronavirus they couldn't, they stopped this. But I hope that they will be able to do this, and I hope that they are actually the new generation, that they will live, they will just live. That's it. That they will rebuild the new, that they will construct new Srebrenica, let's to say, you know, because the old one will never happen again. The Srebrenica before the war we can't bring back, but they can make the new one, and it is why I'm so impressed by this project of the music school. And in you know, they exist in Srebrenica for the years already, and I really hope that they will be able to stay. Also because Srebrenica is empty, you know. Sometimes it is in my street, my kids, they don't have kids to play with, you know. They have to go to the other street because it's empty, you know. So can you imagine when kids are living in different villages, you know, they don't have a chance to spend the time with the friends, to socialize themselves, you know. So that is also what music school is giving to them, you know. So I hope that they will be able to stay for a long in Srebrenica, because they are sending totally different picture from here.
That's a really positive message, I think, for us to end on. So I want to say, from Remembering Srebrenica, thank you very, very much for sharing your story with us, and thank you for sharing your story with all of the people who will watch this. And I'd like to remind everybody who's watching that the national commemoration for Remembering Srebrenica will be on the 11th of July at 7 p.m. UK time. And I'd like to thank Amra again, very specifically for talking to us and telling us her story today.
Thank you for inviting me to tell my story today, because this is the story of all of us. And thank you for the commemorating of the Srebrenica genocide. As we said before, it is very important. It can't be just our problem or whatever, our story. And yeah, greetings for everyone from here.